asked her to give some words about what she was feeling and the spirit she was in at this point. She said, revolution, fearlessness, honesty. And so to that I said, let me think, what can I add to that? So a friend of mine a number of years ago was a World War II fighter pilot, and I got this phrase from him. She doesn't look like a hawk, but she flies like one. It's a Matos.
It's a real pleasure to be here with such an incredible bunch of panelists as well as an audience, many of whom I've had the privilege of working with. I'm a lawyer by training, so my approach to preparing for presentations is usually quite technical. I'm given the question, I put together an outline, and then I fill in the blanks. I have to say that this panel is probably one of the most challenging I've ever been asked to participate in, and for which technical skills, quite frankly, were useless. The topic forced me to really look inside myself and to try to get at fundamental truths. I'm not one of these people who's particularly touchy-feely, and this was a topic that really forced me to look deep inside myself and try to get at some of the things that I generally don't think or try not to feel. So thank you, Bill, and thank you, Nyonya. I decided to start with a quote from Langston Hughes because I think it captures the sentiment of so many people in this room. He once wrote, and I quote, "I tire so of hearing people say, let things take their course. Tomorrow is another day. I do not need my freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread." My yearning for deeper change comes from lived experiences. At the personal level, it comes from regularly feeling the sting of racism and sexism, from seeing the corrosive effects of poverty up close, and from working closely with some of the most marginalized populations in this country, including death row inmates and undocumented immigrants. On a broader level, my yearning for change comes from being witness to the ways that fearless, committed individuals can secure justice, and how empowered communities can demand change, advance equity, and ensure transformation. Some of the individuals and communities of which I speak are in this room. I want to say really that the true revolutionaries of New Haven are all here, and I'm really privileged to be in your company. And you know who you are, looking around the room and thinking, yeah, check, 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 so thank you. My approach to creating change has involved the personal and the political. The only epiphany I ever had in my life was about the death penalty, and because of that I became a community organizer, working in the Deep South to try to save lives. I like to say that I kicked ass, but more often than not I got my ass kicked. In good ways and bad. And working in those communities was really challenging, humbling, and exhilarating. The only reason I went to law school was because I wanted to continue doing death penalty work by also representing people on death row, and because I realized just how few lawyers of color were actually in the trenches working to save lives despite a disproportionate number of people who are still on death row. Through that work, most of my rage was directed at government, which so capriciously engaged in the practice of executing its citizens. Like Ken, I discovered New Haven. I discovered New Haven 10 years ago. And my approach to creating change here originally really involved returning to my roots, which was community engagement. Only this time amongst the populations that I worked with were undocumented immigrants who in many ways are as despised as death row inmates. The community that I fell in love with, like Ken, I live in and I worked in, is Fairhaven. My approach to creating change in New Haven has included working for government, a place whose workforce I thought I would never join. An odd position perhaps, and some people even accuse me of selling out. But as a regular and longtime critic of government and the ways that it regularly fails its people, I realized that I had an opportunity to try to create change within. And I knew that if I turned down that opportunity, I would never, ever give myself the privilege of ever criticizing government again. Through the power of government, I was lucky enough to be able to work on issues affecting youth, immigrants, the homeless, and the re-entry population. And a lot of the people, again, who are in this room are people who I held hands literally and figuratively to try to advance some of this work. Finally, my approach to creating change now includes a stint in philanthropy, working for a social justice foundation that looks to empower the most marginalized and vulnerable populations. Through this work, I'm able to shape philanthropy around 4 major areas: racial justice, comprehensive immigration reform, civil liberties, and the death penalty. Social justice work is my salvation. If I weren't doing this, I don't know what would consume my time or what would nourish my soul. Since I started with a quote from a man, I'm going to end with a quote from a woman, because they say you should save the best for last. And this one is no disrespect to the men in the room. This one is from a hero of mine, Harriet Tubman. She once said, and I quote, "Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passions to reach for the stars to change the world." Thank you.